Hello and welcome to this comparison video on the Nexus 7 versus the iPad mini first generation. Now let's have a look around the device. First of all, we're going to have a look at the iPad mini. So if we put the Nexus 7 to one side, let's start on the right hand side. The bottom of this little section, we have the volume rocker. And then at the top of that little section we have the mute orientation lock. On the top we have the power button. In the middle we have the microphone. On the left hand side we have the headphone port. Down the left hand side we just have a blank piece of metal. At the bottom we have the lightning port. And then we have one speaker, one microphone. This is like the iPhone, this is a thing Apple just do. It makes it look symmetrical, that is the only reason I could really think that they'd do this. Then the front we have the camera for FaceTime calls. We have the screen, then we have the power button. On the back we have the camera, the Apple logo, and then the iPad little logo here. That is the iPad mini. It looks very nice, got a very nice feel in the hands, made out of metal. Nice silky sort of glass, very nice, easy to put your finger over. It is a very nice device, got quite a nice weight to it as well. Got very premium feeling in the hand. Now we're going to take a look at the Nexus 7. So if we swap these round, on the right hand side we have the power button, and then we have the volume rocker directly below. Then at the top we have the headphone port. And then that's all we have at the top. Down the left hand side we have a blank face. On the bottom we have the micro USB port. At the back we have the camera, the speaker there, and another speaker there, so it has dual speaker. Then we have the Nexus branding across here. On the front we have the proximity sensor. We also have the camera, the screen, and then at the bottom, you can't see this now, but there is an LED notification right there. That is all that there is. It's a very understated look on Nexus 7, but it's got this soft touch plastic on the back, which feels very nice. Not as premium as the iPad, but it somehow feels better just because it's not as wide. It's very nice, you can fit your hand quite comfortably, quite around that. It does feel very nice in the hand. Also, the screen is, I would say this is one of the nicest feeling screens apart from the Nexus 5. This is a very nice feeling device. Very not light, I would say it weighs slightly more than the iPad, but it's not too bad, but it doesn't feel as premium quality as the iPad. But they're not too bad, but for what they are great devices and how they feel and look. And I would go for either of these on looks, but probably the iPad because it does have that more premium feeling and metal all the way around the back. Right, now let's compare the specs of these two devices. First of all, the Nexus 7 has a 7-inch LCD display. It has a pixel density of 323. This means the text is really clear and is very nice to look at. On the iPad mini, we have a 7.9 inch, which is also an LCD display. This only has a pixel density of 163, which means you can sometimes see pixels, and it looks nowhere near as crisp as the Nexus 7. But the iPad has a ratio aspect of 4:3, which means it's not as thin and long as the normal tablet sort of design, which in some ways is better, but in some ways worse. In most formats you have the same style screen as the Nexus 7, but on the iPad, if you watch a film or a YouTube video, you'll have the whole screen can't be optimised, and you'll have two black bars on the top and bottom because that is not the normal filming ratio aspect as such. The CPUs on these devices are completely different. The Nexus 7 has a Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 Pro, and it's running at 1.5 GHz. On the iPad, we have a 1 GHz dual-core ARM Cortex-A9. I have to say these both run fantastic on the devices. The Nexus 7 theoretically should run much better than the iPad, but because the iPad has been optimised for its hardware, it does run pretty quick as well, and I would say either way it is about the same. The Nexus 7 does sometimes pull away slightly in gaming because it has that extra oomph, but it does run very, very similar for the two devices. Then this leads us on to the GPUs, which the Nexus 7 has a Adreno 320. Then the iPad has a PowerVR. This is, the Adreno 330 is on quite a lot of Android devices, and the PowerVR is mostly on the Apple devices. But the one thing I'd say is the games definitely do run better on the Nexus 7, just because it has a better GPU. The RAM on the Nexus 7 is 2 gig of DDR3. This is up to standards of normal Android devices. Then the iPad mini has half a gig of DDR2. This, in my eyes, isn't enough, but Apple have optimised their hardware for the software, so that means it runs pretty smooth. I have encountered a few times and occasions where it does suddenly start to stutter on the iPad, but it's not too bad. You can get over it, it'll be fine. But the Nexus 7 has run for me very, very smooth, and I've encountered no real lag issues at all, to be honest. The connectivity on these two devices are really good. The Nexus 7 has dual band Wi-Fi, NFC, Bluetooth 4.0, and it has an LTE variant available. On the iPad it has dual band Wi-Fi, Bluetooth 4.0 and LTE available as well, but it does not have NFC because Apple have only just introduced that, and it only works on Apple Pay. It doesn't work as a transfer data sort of thing. That's only really on Android Beam, which is obviously on Android. This is a shame. Apple could really open it up to a lot more, and they could do so much more with it, but at the moment it's only on Apple Pay, and it isn't even on the iPad mini first generation. So I'm waiting for Apple to sort of show what they can do with this NFC technology, but they haven't really showed anything just yet. These two devices right here are good devices, but the one thing is they're not that heavy. The iPad mini only weighs 308 grams, which is very, very light, and the Nexus 7 only weighs 290. This is very light, and it also means that it feels very nice in the hand. Comparing the two, side by side, it feels like the iPad is actually lighter than Nexus, but I would say, yeah, it definitely feels lighter in the hand, the iPad, but I reckon that's just because of where the weight is. It feels like the weight on the Nexus 7, it's mostly in the middle, but I would rather hold this than the iPad for some reason. It just feels much more comfortable in the hand to hold the Nexus 7. The Nexus 7 for the 16 gig model is only £150. This is a great price for the hardware and the software side of things. The iPad mini has the 16 gig model at £200. This is £50 more expensive. I would say that it's probably worth it because of the materials, but personally I prefer Android, and it makes it a lot easier for me because it's that £50 cheaper, so that means I could just go and buy it. It is more of a best buy for a child because it is cheaper, so you won't worry as much because it's not as expensive. But personally, the more, I would say the iPad mini isn't as good as still as the Nexus, obviously, because it is that slight bit more expensive, but for overall, I would definitely go with a Nexus device rather than an iPad. And this is my personal opinion. It might not be used. If it's your opinion, it could be that you want the iPad more because you have heavily invested in the Apple community. But if you are like me and you heavily invested in trying to get Android, this is the way to go. Get the Nexus 7. But vice versa, definitely get whatever you've heavily sort of went into and heavily invested. So if you have an iMac and a MacBook and an iPhone, I'd definitely go for the iPad. But if you have a Nexus 6A or a Nexus 5, and then you have a Chromecast and you have other things to run it to Android, I would definitely go for this Nexus. This is the only thing I'd say. either way, you could buy either one, but it all really depends on what you have invested in. The cameras on these two devices are nothing special because they're tablets. They don't need to have the highest megapixel, don't need to have the best sensors. These are just cameras that you may take the occasional picture with, and then just use on Instagram sign. Nothing special. The Nexus 7 has a rear-facing camera at 5 megapixels. This can film at 1080p, which is not bad, nothing special again. It's just nice to have one, really. I remember when the iPad 1 came out, that did not have a camera, and that was a big deal breaker for some people, because you might need a camera to use or to FaceTime or Skype, stuff like that. That was a big killer, but now most tablets, if not all, have cameras built in. The front-facing camera on the Nexus 7 is a 1.2 megapixel camera and is at 720p, which means all your hangout calls are going to look great. There's nothing really wrong with that. Then the iPad has the rear-facing camera is a 5 megapixel again. This is at 1080p again. Same camera is very, very similar, but I would definitely say the better out of the two rear-facing cameras is the iPad mini, because Apple somehow seem to make their cameras amazing, even though they have not very good megapixels. They just seem to look amazing. The front-facing camera on the iPad mini is 1.2 megapixels again, also running at 720p. This is great for FaceTime, and also, again, it looks a lot better. When I'm FaceTiming people, it does normally look better, but sometimes it really depends on your lighting. Sometimes the iPad looks better, sometimes the Nexus looks better. So I would say either way that you don't really need to go, if you want to go and buy a decent iPad with a nice camera, I would definitely go for the more expensive option of getting a big iPad, because that now has an 8 megapixel camera and it looks much better. But no one really takes pictures on their tablet anymore. It's all about having that nice good camera on your phone, or having a separate camera like a DSLR or a bridge camera. I'm not going to talk a lot about the software running on these two devices, because I have done a video on how the software runs on either device. The iPad mini has iOS 8.1 latest version, some new features built in, such as changing the keyboards, which Android has done for a long time, but it's one of their new features. New little apps put in there, the Fit app, and it's all sort of like coming a better OS, but still not as customizable as Android. And the Android version on the Nexus 7 is Android Lollipop, the latest from Google. It is amazing. I have only had it a matter of weeks, but at the moment I'm loving it. It's a much nicer sort of layout and everything, and the transitions are much nicer. I'll leave a link in the description for my initial thoughts, and then I'll leave another link for the versus video for the OS on the tablet. But either way, they are very, very good devices. The OSs are pretty good. There's nothing really that can compete with that unless you have Windows, but then Windows has not really got a decent app store compared to these two. These two have both got brilliant app stores. But the only thing I'd say is, if you want apps, I would definitely go for the iPad, because it has the app store and it's much bigger than the Play Store. But then you can download any app you want from the internet on the Nexus 7, which is also a plus point. So if you're a developer, I would definitely go for a Nexus, because you could shove apps on that and you wouldn't have to worry about mucking it up too much. Whereas the Nexus, the iPad, sorry, has really hard to put apps on unless you jailbreak, start putting stuff on. But either way, definitely good OSs. They run very smooth devices, because they've both sort of been optimised for the hardware, and the software have been all put into one, which makes these two great devices. The batteries on these two devices are not very similar. The Nexus 7 has a 3950 milliamp battery. This isn't the biggest battery I've seen, but it isn't the smallest. You could easily get 2 days out of it on mediocre usage, which isn't too bad. But the iPad mini, which I find this very impressive, has a 4440 milliamp battery. This means it lasts ages. You get 3 to 4 days out of this on alright usage. I would definitely go in this section to the iPad, because it does last longer, and since it's iOS, it normally lasts longer because it's optimised by the hardware, and it all works together. Also, because of the low resolution, you don't need to use as many pixels and light them all. This means the iPad will last longer anyway, but overall I would definitely say the iPad has got the better battery life out of the two. Right, conclusion time. These two tablets are amazing for the price. If you want to buy one, the only thing I would recommend is in going into what you have invested in, like I said earlier. If you are an Apple person, I would recommend going for the iPad mini because you'll have an iPhone and it will all link in to your Apple account. But then if you have a Google account, it will all link into your Google account. This is the only thing I would recommend, so I'm not going to say which one I prefer, but in overall sort of view, if you want one of these devices, definitely pick the one you have invested into the hardware. So if you have an iPhone, Mac, definitely go for this. If you have a Android phone, definitely go for the Nexus. That's the only thing I can say. Thanks guys for watching this video. Please feel free to comment. I will read and normally get back to you. Please feel free to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time with a new video. 'Cause tomorrow is another day.